Hey guys, it's Josh, Jeff, and Terry, and today we're talking about parenting. Say hi, guys.
Hi.
All right. Do we need a longer pause here? Okay. All right, that's a long enough pause. You can find that.
Yes, we will.
All right. Okay, so Josh, I think that we're talking about parenting because you're struggling so much.
Absolutely.
In the parenting aspect. Now, actually, the reason we thought it'd be a cool topic is because we have a wealth of a range, I guess, of experience here. Where Josh is a brand new parent.
Yep.
How old is CJ now?
2 months.
2 months old. Jeff has 3 kids that are
4, 7, 9.
and that's backwards. You're supposed to do oldest to youngest.
Is that how it works?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, 9, 7, and 4.
Very good. And I have 3 kids that are 22, 20, and 12. So different experiences there. And in addition to that, we all have parents.
That we do.
So we
do.
have that going for us.
And in-laws.
In-laws. Yeah. So be careful what you say. So, but anyway, so the format here I think is we decided that since Jeff and I have been parenting a little bit longer than Josh has, Josh would ask some of the questions about what we are going to talk about, and then we would answer those questions, I assume, right? So, or stare off blankly into space because we don't know what we're talking about.
And just to make this as entertaining as possible for you, we did not look at the questions in advance. So
they have no idea what's coming. I'll try to be kind.
I do.
All right. Well, so you guys kind of covered the ages and the number of kids that you've got. Do you want to do a breakdown real quick of boys versus girls?
sure. My oldest JJ is 9. My middle child James is 7, and then Lily is my little girl. So, and she's 4.
Nice. I have a daughter who's 22. Her name is Hope. Son Sam, who's 20, and Rose, our little girl, is 12. So.
Awesome. And given the choice, which is easier to raise?
Which is easier, or
To be
which
a
would you
parent.
rather have?
I'm giving you an out here. Which is easier? So,
Well, I'll go with the non-out question. Which would I rather have?
Okay.
The reality is I wanted both, right?
Mhm.
And while I think both have their uniquenesses in them, for me, the difference in how they are raised is not necessarily in their gender; it is in their personalities. For me, my little girl tends to be a little more strong-willed than my 2 boys, and so she's been a little more challenging up to this point than the boys have, just from a personality perspective, and that. So, except for me, it's not so much what gender my kids are; it's just the personalities of each of my kids.
Yeah, I think because I remember having Hope our first, and my expectation and my hope was that it was going to be a boy, and I think that's just because you're a dude, you want another little dude to play with, right? So I don't know if that's a normal thing for a guy, but I feel like it is. I feel like guys want they want a little boy, right? Now, I wasn't disappointed. In fact, Hope would be, before we had the other kids, she was my best friend, right? So outside of Heidi, obviously, so we just had a blast, right? So you have great times. And as far as which one's easier, I don't think there's a real question answer to that. So every kid is different. The genders have their own challenges as they grow up, but and I would say, I don't know. For me, I think relating to the challenges you go through as a boy growing up, especially because Sam is 20, right? So we went through the whole puberty thing and the whole teenage thing and getting older. So it's easier for me to relate and tell stories and talk about things. And I think it's good because it's easier for, at least I hope it's easier for the boy, because he knows that you went through everything too. So
sure.
But that being said, I don't think there's an easier answer as far as, at least like you're talking about, personalities, strong-willed, stuff like that.
So you both kind of hinted at something in each of your responses, and I'm curious to hear do you feel your role as a dad is the same as being like what your wife would be in terms of raising your children, or do you feel that there's something innately ingrained differently in being a dad?
Yeah, definitely. There's something different being a dad than a mom, right? And you start to see that, and Jeff, you can echo if you see this in your family also, but when my kids get hurt, they don't run to me, they run to mom. In fact, I've had many times, and probably if I thought about it, I could think with the older ones, but especially with Rose, because she's the youngest, where she'll get hurt, and I'll be like, what's the matter? And she'll just boom right past me, right, to mom, because I think mom's a little more comforting, right? Or it might be the fact that I just look at him and say, suck it up, right? So, but I think that there's definitely a difference. That would be one. There's a whole bunch of other things I could expand on there, but I'll let you chit chat. So I don't.
Keep going. It was good. I agree. When the kids get hurt, they do tend to run to mom first. Generally, with my kids, they come to me first when they want things. Versus mom. Mom's a little bit more disciplined with what they eat or how they play, what they're supposed to be doing at a specific time, just because you homeschool too. And so a lot of times they come to me because they know that I don't always know what's going on day to day or moment to moment during the day, because I'm working or whatever upstairs and they're they're downstairs. And so it makes for an interesting sometimes dichotomy within the house. But yeah, I mean, I'm right on board with what Terry's saying.
Yeah, there's definitely a different qualities that you're teaching your kids with your feminine or your masculine, right? And I mean, guys and gals can both be, like, Heidi has a personality that is kind of a little tomboyish, and she can be a little bit more of the rough and tough thing, and I have a little bit more of an emotional side. So if you wanted to just characterize male and female characteristics, we kind of both display those. But that being said, I think there's just stuff as a guy that you teach your kids, and then as a mom, you teach your kids. So there's definitely roles there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about it too, I think the example that I set is extraordinarily important, right? So while I may not be teaching something specific, just the way that I act, I think, holds just a little bit different weight with my kids than sometimes with what mom is going to do. Just because mom is that more comforting or more of the day-to-day. So if my actions don't line up with the worldview or the teaching that we want to do, I think that has a big impact on them.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead. It's not fair.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. This is perfect.
We did say we did not
Yes.
prep these
good.
questions in advance.
So that actually leads to a question that, reading into a bit of what you said, are you and Tina always on the same page when you're setting an example for the kids?
Yes. No. I mean, I'm sure Terry could probably attest to this too. Kids will do anything they can to get away with whatever they want to do, right? We are, unfortunately, our human condition means we're very selfish in nature. So when they really want that lollipop or the ice cream or whatever it happens to be, they'll ask mom. Mom will say no. Or what's the next place you're going to go? Or they'll go downstairs and go, Dad, can I have a treat? And I've had to learn. My answer is always, what did mom say? It's never yes. It's never no. It's what did mom say? And just because we want to make sure that we are staying on that same page. Now, do we always hit that 100% of the time? Absolutely not. A lot of times I'll walk downstairs and go, did you tell him you could do this? Yeah. That's not what I told him. Whoops. Or vice versa. It happens the other way around sometimes too, right? I mean, it goes both ways. I'm not just picking on my wife, right? Because it goes both ways in there. And so, but yeah, it's, but I would say on the big things, we're there, right? When we talk about how do we want to raise our kids from a Christian values perspective, we're on track there, right? I mean, it's more of the day-to-day disciplines that we get into that dichotomy between us.
So, Terry, the trying to raise kids in a society like we have today, you've kind of seen I'll call it the evolution of that parenting style have to change between Hope and Rose. What are some of the challenges that you feel that you and Heidi have overcome with helping to train up from Hope all the way to Rose, and what are those consistencies that you've found versus finding things that are specific to the time period, like what we're going through now?
There's like 5 questions in there. Yeah.
Yep.
So
And
Not a
actually,
very
Terry,
good interview.
can I comment one thing before you actually answer that? So, when it comes to Hope and Sam, they are extremely well-behaved, well-mannered, intelligent children. I mean, Hope is she even chose not to go to college and is out in a career and doing very well in her career, even what most people consider a very young age. And so I just want to make that as a comment that the fruit is on the tree when Terry talks about this. So it's not like they're off doing just wild and wacky things. They are living their Christian foundation out in their lives right now with what they're doing. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
added that in as so we're not trying to talk from a place of ignorance or not knowing that there actually is fruit on the tree, especially in Terry's case when it comes to this particular topic.
Perfect.
yeah, so I think that when you talk about the culture changing or raising kids, having to change your style of raising kids because of the culture has evolved into, we could talk about all the crazy things going on right now, right? But I don't think the style changes. I think it's the same, in fact, because you don't have anything to you can't compare the future to what you're going through, right? So you don't know. And at the time when Hope was little and Sam was little, the culture is always going backwards, right? And from my Christian perspective, it's like always going backwards. So I remember one time we were at a friend's house, and they had some other friends over, and the other friends had a little 2-year-old that was running around. Hope and Sam were probably in their 5 to 7-year-old range. And somebody started talking about kids and how you raise kids. And this person made a comment, and they said, well, we're going to let our boy kind of figure things out for them himself, as what he wants to believe or how he wants to learn things. And it was a little shocking to me, because it was like, well, I get what you're saying. You don't want to force an opinion on the kid. But they got all done kind of explaining how they were going to be a little bit free range raising their kid thing. And I said, we've kind of taken the opposite approach. I have brainwashed my kids with everything that I believe is true. And they were a little bit shocked by that. And I did it for that effect. But the reason I did that was because that's what we have done. And when you have kids, there's a reason you believe what you believe, right? You have a foundation in your life that you believe. Hopefully, you've established that foundation. You're not just being tossed, from belief to belief, and you know what you believe. And ours was a Christian, biblical foundation. And I wanted, when they were forced in life to get an opinion or see something that contradicted what I had taught them, I wanted them to go back to a foundation and know that it was true. And it wasn't true just because I pounded it into their head, but it was true because they saw us live those principles to the best of our ability. They saw us in their marriage live those out, and so that's really the way we approached it, right? So was there changes in the way we parent? There's probably topics that with Rose we've approached a little quicker, just because kids are learning stuff faster and faster nowadays. But outside of that, it's if you base it on a biblical foundation and not just in platitudes, but actually going to the Word and studying the Word with them. I've fortunately been working from home for the last 10 years, and so I get to sit and listen to the homeschooling that goes on. And a lot of times I learn more than the kid probably does, but it's fun because I get to hear them read things and then apply it to a biblical principle, or read the Bible and stop and talk about it. And it's neat to hear your kids interact with that, because they're really learning it. And you mentioned Hope. She's so strong in her faith and her foundation. Sam is he's in college, and he's got such a strong foundation in his faith that really warms your heart to see your kids go out, because you want them to go out there and do that. And Heidi has a little phrase she stole from one of the homeschooling seminars we go to that this lady says, do you want your kids to get into Harvard or to get into heaven? Right? And so often we get caught up in how we're raising our kids to be successful in the world, but the most important thing is to be successful in their heart. So.
Well, you covered everything, so very good.
Peace out. We're done.
So I know that both of you have chosen to do homeschooling, and I know that there's a number of reasons that was the right choice for you guys as family. For maybe somebody who's still on the fence, or someone who hasn't quite made a decision, self-included, because we don't know where things could turn around by the time CJ is not 2 months old anymore. What would you say has been the most important reason to choose homeschooling over public school? I have some ideas based off previous conversations we've had, but I'm curious.
I'll be honest. My hesitation to answer is how hard do I be on this, right? You alluded to it, I think, in your question for my wife and I. If when we're look at what's being taught, and even that's when we made the decision, even 5 or 6 years ago, to homeschool when JJ was first getting to those ages. It was still, it was still wonky then, but it's nothing, I think, even compared to what's going on in public education now. At least here in the state of Minnesota, the critical race theory, some of the non-biblical principles that are being taught within our school systems right now in public education are just not the direction that we wanted to go for our family. It was not the right direction because we wanted to raise our kids with that Christian foundation. That was probably one of our main drivers behind doing the homeschooling thing, is because we knew that the foundation we wanted for our children, and they weren't going to get that in the public education system. And I would say maybe the second reason is, we didn't think we could mess up kindergarten math. Right? And so that time when our kids are that young, and the age range that I'm in, 9 and under, is one of the most important times for them to be home learning from their parents, to send them off. There's all kinds of statistics out there that show just how really not good for the kids that really is, from reading too early to being pushed, and what that does to them long term is just the statistics are honestly, they're overlooked, and there's an agenda being pushed. There's a reason that those statistics aren't seen, but they're out there. And so that was kind of, I would say, the two big ones that we wanted those formative ages when they were young to be from us, and not from someone else. So Terry, how about you?
No, that's pretty much what I would say too. I think that that those kids that go to private school, those kids that go to public school, that make it, and they're okay, right? Mm-hmm. But I just think that it's a more difficult road. We can all remember back going to school. There's a lot of peer pressure. There's a lot, and not that there isn't as a homeschool too, but you have a little more. You have a little more control over the environment, and you don't shelter your kids. You don't protect them. You're just preparing them to how to face those battles. So
I think that's a key phrase that I remember you've mentioned it before, that and you even said it, that your goal was to brainwash them. Mm-hmm. You're being tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time, if you don't teach them something, someone else will, and you have no idea what's going to stick if you don't get there first. Yeah. At least to give them a chance of learning what you have found to be truth in your life.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
And I would say too that in the homeschooling environment, you have the ability to not just teach them what they should know, but why they should know it, right? Which is important, because if you're just teaching them what, at some point someone else is going to convince them that there's a better what. But if they know why they believe it, they'll be able to at least back up their beliefs and then make that decision on their own. And I would say too that anybody that is worried about it or thinking about homeschooling, or they don't think they can do it, that's what everybody thinks. Anybody that goes into homeschooling thinks, I don't know if we can do this. We have the same thought process. How do you do this? What do you do? There's so much mentorship and ability to get help, and programs out there, and different ways to do it. It's worth it to look into it. And like you just said, when they're little, like 4 years old, 5 years old, and even before that, if you just read to kids, they will sit there forever and listen to you read. If you get Winnie the Pooh or some book when they're little, they'll sit at your feet and they will listen to you read until you. And then Rose actually used to love. She would come to me when I was sleepy, and she'd, "You read to me, because when you're sleepy, you start to make stuff up when you're reading it." And she thought that was a blast. But they love it. And like Jeff said, the statistics prove out that when kids go to a structured school or a conveyor belt school, right, where you're just kind of cranking kids through there, they learn to hate learning, right? How many kids I hate math, or I hate this subject, or I hate going to school. But if in homeschooling, you have the ability to teach your kids to love to learn, and then that's what they need, because how many of us get to an adult age and I'm done. I'm done learning. I'm just going to coast now, right? But if you can get to the point where you love to learn, that's exciting.
So I want to put one more plug in here, right? Because I think, as you can tell, just with the way Terry and I talked here, there's probably a little more passion behind this topic than some of the others that we talked about. The other questions weren't great, but we'll throw it out there that if you're watching this video and you're considering homeschooling and you don't think you can do it, email us. Reach out. We're happy to help send resources, point you in direction of where we got some of the thought process behind how we did homeschooling, or even some of the the curriculum. Although we do not want to big curriculum people, but some of the stuff that we did, we want to be able to help you in that journey. We think it's so important with your children's education today, with what the world is teaching, especially if you want that Christian foundation. Reach out. Our email will be linked either in the video or down right here somewhere. We'll have that email. Reach out to us. We're happy to assist. I know Terry would echo the same thing here. No, yeah, of course he's going to say that.
All right. Well, we kind of forayed into the homeschooling. I'm going to foray back out of it real quick as we wrap up here.
Have you ever forayed before?
Not a single time. I've never once forayed.
You just did, so congratulations.
Twice.
Kind of the evolution of your parenting. What's something, if you look backwards, would be the one thing you wish you had known going into it that you've learned the hard way on this side of having raised some successful kids to the age that they're at?
That's a good question. Do you have something, or otherwise I can?
If you can start, I would recommend it.
I can start. I've got a little farther ahead, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing that I think I would, and I still have the opportunity to do this, and so it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Is I would engage some difficult conversations with my kids more often, right? Especially as they get into the puberty years and that kind of stuff, and you have the talk and all that kind of stuff. That, as a parent, I think it's our responsibility to guide our kids through that. And as a parent, I think a lot of times people get nervous at that time. Parents do, right? And a lot of times it's difficult for parents to do that just because they feel like it's awkward. Well, for the kid, especially when you're first starting those topics, they're just like big deal, right? But once that's done, then I think just having more frequent visits to, hey, the stuff we talked about, have you heard anything? Have you learned anything? Whatever, just kind of keeping tabs on it.
So it's not a one and done.
It's not a one and done, right? And I wouldn't. That's not the way we approach it. But there are gaps of time where it's like, I should have been more in touch here, just to kind of help, guide the children through those, or the kids through those areas of their life and those times in their life. So.
And I'm sure that was hard learned, but then there's also it wouldn't have been easy for you because you had mentioned it. Those conversations are uncomfortable in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing how to even approach those can sometimes be the barrier to having those ongoing conversations.
Right. And so it's uncomfortable until you do it, and then it's like not uncomfortable. And then when you let it go longer, it's uncomfortable again. So if you keep the conversation, it just becomes a conversation, right?
Okay.
And when you think about when you raise a girl, you have to teach them how guys think, right?
Yeah.
Right? So that's uncomfortable but if you continue that conversation, you can teach them that you really, I don't want to get into tons of details, but what type of guy that you're going to be looking for. Mm-hmm. And when you're a guy, when you're raising a boy, especially if you're a dad, you know what boys go through as they get older and they start to, all of a sudden notice girls or whatever, right? And that's like you said, it's not a one and done. That's a continual process, right? But I think we can kind of fall into that trap of, I talked to him about that now, so he should be good, right? So it's like, no,
in marriage. I told you I loved you.
Yeah, I told you I loved you. Something changes, I'll let you know.
I'm supposed to do that?
Yes. So usually the way Jeff's way of telling Tina that he loves her is when he's on the phone and I'm saying, "Love you, honey." Say, "Love you, love you."
Yeah, we were just having that conversation the other day.
We were. So anyway, more frequent in those difficult topics.
Okay, so that's a really good point. I wouldn't. Very good.
It is. It is. That's one of the big things that I look back and go, you know what? As well as they turned out, and they're doing fantastic. That I would just been more consistent with that.
This might sound slightly strange, but less structure. I think when I look back and the way we try to do certain disciplines and the way we try to do even the beginning of homeschooling and the way we try to bring in certain curriculum into that homeschooling, kids naturally figure things out. if you just play games with them and let them have fun, go let them dig in the dirt and play games, they figure out how to do math by playing Monopoly all on their own. No parent involvement. They figure it out. They're just natural learners. And I think if I look back at when we started some of that homeschooling and down some of that track, we didn't let them. We got in the way of that natural learning. And so I would go back and be a lot less structured in the way that we started, especially the homeschooling stuff, and even some of the discipline stuff, the way we started building some daily habits of chores and stuff. There's a lot of that stuff that I would love to go back and say, okay, well, let's be less structured and try to teach it more from the responsibility aspect than a necessarily very structured, forced type mindset behind it. So that'd be the one that I would say, kids naturally learn, let them learn. They naturally want to do well. They want parents to be proud of them, and if you just give them the environment to be able to learn and to allow them to be proud of you and to do that encouragement with them, you're going to be golden.
Very cool. All right, well, we've covered quite a bit here in this. I've asked a lot of questions. Probably I've got a ton more that we could have went into, but for the sake of the video length, we'll wrap this up. Maybe we can do some more of these, and we can be more tips and tricks that you guys have learned coming from a Christian perspective, trying to create disciples in the world from your own kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before we wrap up, Josh, you being a 2-month-old parent,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
That sounds like a 2-month-old parent because you're.
Wait. Well,
Yeah, that's technically correct.
Yeah. You're
11-month-olds.
Well,
Yeah,
if you want to count the
If you wanna
count the gestation
Well,
period, yes.
Yeah, if you're going to take credit for the first 9 months as a parent, you're getting in trouble.
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Good point.
We'll cut Kimberly a little slack. She had to go through it, but
we'll
yeah,
give
so-
her the credit. I
You're
have
like-
nothing to do.
Those first 9 months were a breeze.
I gotta build myself up.
No, in the 2 months that you had a baby, I think of this as you're doing less parenting to the kid because you're changing a diaper, or you're holding the
Yeah,
kid.
you're just keeping the kid alive.
Yeah, right. But so as a brand new parent,
Yeah.
what do you think has been like the biggest challenge?
I think for me, it's been not letting the over analysis of how do I make sure I do everything exactly right at the right time for the right reasons. Remembering that I turned out okay, and my parents made mistakes, and their parents made mistakes, and they turned out okay. And just remembering, have some grace for myself and my wife, definitively. But I think it's the looking at how he's going to turn out in the future. You can't predict that. So I'm really struggling not to put boundaries around what my expectations for him are already.
Mm-hmm.
I just want him to be happy and healthy and productive by his definition, as long as they hopefully align with some of the principles that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That he's got a love for the Lord and is grounded in that, not because I told him to be, but because he's come to learn it on his own. From there, whatever he wants to do and whatever, but that's not my innate nature. That's not my default mode. But I'm working on that so that by the time he does get to a point, I can be genuinely encouraging for, you want to go play the ukulele and that's all you want to do? Go for it. Not, oh, you should go be a physicist somewhere. No offense, Lance.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I think that there's a lot of stress that new parents invoke on themselves by worrying about so much of the structure, so much of the am I doing everything right and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe Heidi might disagree with this, but for some reason we were able to let that go really quick, and we didn't quote unquote baby the babies.
Mm-hmm.
And when we tried to make our kids fit into our lifestyle instead of changing our lifestyle to wrap around the kids, because they're going to make it, like you said. They're going to make it. You just feed them and change their diaper, they're going to make it. And the other thing, as we kind of wrap up, I thought of as you were saying that is, a baby changes, a kid changes the dynamics of your household, right? Because it's no longer just you and your wife. But once you can get past that change of physical people then if you can get back to just being you and your wife and you're raising these kids, there's a couple things that happen. Your relationship deepens with your spouse incredibly. And it teaches your kids a foundational truth, because they see a united front of husband and wife all the time, and that their mom and dad are best friends, and mom and dad apologize when they need to apologize, and mom and dad make mistakes, but they correct them. All those kind of things. Whereas if you can stay tight in your, and not let the kid totally change the whole environment. So anyway, that made me think of that when because new parents are always.
No, absolutely, and I think that's actually a topic that we maybe should pursue, whenever we get around to it. But I think that sometimes we categorize, there's marriage, there's parenting.
Yeah.
It should be both. They have to be intertwined, and I've realized that far more. I'm watching you guys. You guys have great families that you've incorporated that in. I didn't necessarily grow up, at least cognizantly, looking for or being aware of that. But having talked with you guys and seeing it, I know that's something that I'm hoping that Kimberly and I can come up and, like you said, to kind of get into that groove of, we are married parents.
Yeah. Parenting.
Paraging. We'll go with that. I like it.
Paraging.
Which can
Yes.
be disparaging.
Do I have to say I do again?
No, you just have to do. Change the do.
Yes, that's a good one.
But yeah, no, and it's hard for parents with brand new parents to let go of that feeling of I have this kind of aspect of parenting.
No, there's no such thing as a perfect parent.
Yes, except for Heidi. She's perfect. Perfect parent. How about pickled peppers?
We're not talking about pickled peppers.
Anyway.
The first 10 minutes of trying to get all of our stuff up was about pickled peppers. Yes.
Yes. All right, thanks for chatting with us about parenting. This is Josh, Jeff, and Terry signing off till next time. Say bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.